There you go.
Your English is excellent today. This is like a test.
Still have the little sports stuff in me. All right, good afternoon, everyone. Pleasure to be out here today in Staten Island with the mayor, borough president, Chief Delatorre, the borough commander. We're out here today to announce that on April 24th, the 123 Precinct will be joining in as one of our neighborhood policing commands. There'll be one of 4 more commands that will be rolling out on the 24th, including the 6-3, including the 2-5, the 7-6, the 9-4. On April 24th, that'll give us 43 out of our 77 police commands that'll be running under this philosophy. In the summer, we're going to be announcing 4 more commands in July. It'll be the 6-3, the 8-3, the 106, and the 115. So by summer, we will have 47 out of our 77 police precincts, and all 9 of our housing PSAs will be running under this philosophy. Neighborhood policing is a philosophical change in the way that we police. It's tying our cops to specific areas, specific geographies within the commands. It is our neighborhood coordination officers working in conjunction with the steady sectors, creating a team that is within this command that has ownership. We allow our cops to resolve problems. We allow our cops to figure out how to provide services working together with the community. Before we put these cops out, we do an extensive training with them, and that's currently where the officers that are going to be the neighborhood coordination officers here in the 123 are today. They are receiving our criminal investigation course. This is the same course that every new detective gets. They will be able to respond to and investigate crimes in a manner similar to our detectives and working in close conjunction with the detectives up in the squad. This is the change that we've given to our officers. We trust our officers to have their discretion and to be able to resolve problems on their own. So we're very glad to have the 123 involved in this program starting on April 24th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor.
All right.
Well, thank you, Chief. Thank you for the good news. And I want to first of all say, really happy to be starting this week here in Staten Island, starting with good news for all the residents of the 123 Precinct. Chief, you can have my chair. Chief, want to thank you for the leadership role you've played as Chief of Patrol in taking the vision that began when Commissioner Bratton was commissioner and Jimmy O'Neill was chief of department, and has continued to grow. Our neighborhood policing vision has deepened throughout the city, has a lot of elements. The NCO program is a key piece of it. But under Chief Monahan's leadership, it has really deepened all over the city. And look, this is part of how we keep people safer. We believe in neighborhood policing for many reasons. We believe it will bring community and police closer together. We believe it will make our officers safer. We believe it will increase the flow of information to our officers from communities. Overall, we believe it's the right path for public safety. And it is something very powerful when we can bring it to another precinct. Neighborhood policing overall affects how we train all of our new officers, and affects, obviously, the retraining we do on a regular basis. It has to do with everything we're now doing in the police department. But one of the leading elements is the neighborhood coordination officers. And to have the NCOs here in the 123 will deepen the already extraordinary efforts that are happening all the time in this precinct. This has been a precinct where the precinct leadership and the men and women who patrol these streets have done an extraordinary job. And we want to keep building on those gains. And it's an example of the fact that we believe, even when the NYPD has found great success, that we have to keep going farther. You know, we talked in the last couple of weeks about big changes we're going to make in this city. Obviously, we talked about the decision to close the jail facility on Rikers Island in the coming years. That was predicated on the idea that we could keep driving down crime. And we have to do that in every single one of our precincts. So we are dedicated to, even in places that have seen great success, going farther, because we are depending on the NYPD and all their partners in neighborhoods all over New York City to continue this success, just to keep deepening it year after year. Let me tell you that the NCO relationship, what the neighborhood coordination officers do, the relationship they have to the people they serve, I've seen it all over the city now, and it is extraordinary to me. You talk to the officers, the level of satisfaction they have doing their work is striking, because they really get to know the community. They really bond with not only community leaders, but everyday people in the community. And they hear what's going on in a way that they didn't have an opportunity to before. They learn about a lot of problems. Even before problems emerge, they're getting the kind of tips that allow them to stop crimes before they happen. They're getting the kind of information that allows them to get to illegal weapons. They're getting a lot of thank yous from the people they serve, because that relationship helps bring out the best in everyone. And I tell you, when I talk to neighborhood residents, they're so appreciative to have that personal relationship with the officers who serve them. So this is the wave of the future. This is how policing will continue to get better. And we are convinced that the numbers are now backing up. We felt all along this was an idea that was going to work. And as we've gone along, we've said many times, Commissioner O'Neill and I have said, we've heard from so many community residents, so many officers, that we knew anecdotally it was working. But now we're in a position to give you some numbers to further clarify the success already of neighborhood policing overall, and specifically of the Neighborhood Coordination Officer Program. So let's look at the first quarter of 2017, the first 3 months of this year. The precincts that had NCOs saw a 6.2% drop in index crimes versus the same quarter a year ago. 6.2% drop in crime in those precincts. Now that compares to a 5.2% decline in the citywide crime statistics. So we're very proud of what's been achieved citywide. 5.2% decrease in index crimes from last quarter to this is amazing to begin with. But the fact that we've even gone farther in the precincts that had NCOs is something that really makes clear why this is the idea we needed to keep deepening our success. And remember, a lot of those precincts are some of the ones that have had the toughest problems with crime over the years. When we rolled out the NCO initiative, we focused it on precincts that had the most violent crime. So even though that's the history, at the same time, we've seen even greater decreases in crime than the citywide average. Now, I want to give you one example that I think really gives you a real clear sense of why this initiative works. And it's from the 7-1 precinct in central Brooklyn. So NCO program was initiated there, and we started to see the way it could help solve crimes in a different way. So in the 7-1 precinct, there was a major uptick in car break-ins last fall. And the NCOs who were assigned to the area worked with neighborhood contacts they had. They worked with neighborhood residents who were helping them to get the information they needed. And they found a way to get video of some of the break-ins. They used the video to identify the suspects and to determine the pattern of the crimes. And then the NCOs, because this is a program that focuses on being strategic and flexible, they adjusted their schedules. They worked the midnight shift when most of the break-ins were happening. By staying in close contact with community members, constantly updating their information, they were able to pinpoint where the suspects would be, and they were able to catch them in the act of breaking into vehicles. And that meant that that crime pattern was immediately stopped. To make matters even better, one of the suspects had a loaded gun on him. So you got a gun collar in the bargain, and a legal weapon taken off the streets at the same time. This is an example of why this model is so powerful. It allows the NYPD, already the greatest police force in the country, to go even farther and to focus resources even better and use that community information in a way that solves crimes like never before. So it's a great joy that the 123 precinct will benefit from the NCO initiative. Now, again, this is a precinct. Everyone should be very proud in this precinct. The safest residential precinct in the city for the last 6 years. People who live here should be proud. Elected officials should be proud. First and foremost, the men and women of the NYPD should be proud. But you don't rest on your laurels. We got to keep going. We got to keep driving down crime. So this is a place that benefits from this initiative, too. I got to tell you, it is exciting to see how all these pieces are coming together, because the NCO program was made possible just like our anti-terror efforts, our Critical Response Command and other units were able to be as strong as they are because we added 2,000 more officers on patrol, because we've added the technology, we've added the training. All of these pieces are adding up to make us safer. And we're convinced this is the way of the future. This is the first time we've been able to see statistics from such a wide sample of the city. But if the first quarter of this year is any indication, neighborhood policing is well on its way to making us safer, and the NCO component in particular is really leading the way. Just a few words in Spanish. Nuestro plan policial de vecindad está haciendo a Nueva York más fuerte, más segura y más justa para todos. Creemos que cada comunidad de cada condado debe cosechar los beneficios de este plan. La ciudad de Nueva York es cada día más segura gracias al NYPD. Now, I should do it in Italian next to honor our common heritage.
I wouldn't understand a word.
You know, it's okay. It's in you there. It's in you. Cannoli, you understand that? I want to bring forward the borough president. I want to thank him again for his hospitality. And he's gone out of his way sharing Borough Hall with my entire team. I want to thank him for all the partnership and for feeding us this morning. Anyone who brings cannoli deserves special treatment, I think. Thank you, Borough President.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah.
You want to do that?
Yeah, please.
There
Thank
you
you.
go.
Thank you. Last Friday, I had the pleasure of joining District Attorney Mike McMahon, Chief Delatorre, Rabbi Lairfield in speaking to the new class of New York City police officers coming to Staten Island. And after I thanked them for hearing the calling to be willing to put on the blue uniform and do a very difficult job, I told them they were very fortunate to be joining this department at this unique moment. New York City in the year 2017 is not New York City in the year 1993 or 2003 or even 2013, and it can't be policed the same. And I told these young police officers that they were really fortunate. They are coming to a borough that has 4 great precinct commanders, Captain Noonan included. They're coming to a borough that has a great, and I mean great, borough commander in Chief Delatorre. And they're coming to a borough when the department is doing some really unique things, including the Too Good for Drugs initiative that the mayor is so supportive on. Staten Islanders want to know their police officers. And the overarching principle here, whether it is North Shore or South Shore, this is an opportunity for Staten Island to get to know their police officers and for their police officers to be put in a position to get to know Staten Islanders even better. There are some unique benefits to the North Shore. We're aware of what they are. They're building police-community relations. And I think there's some unique benefits here on the South Shore, which is really the epicenter of the opioid epidemic that plagues our borough. I will close with this. I heard the Chief mention the word, and I wrote it down, ownership. If you recall the 2 books I brought in this morning to the briefing, one was called Extreme Ownership by those 2 Navy SEALs. I buy into the notion that we should train our police officers, equip them as best as we can, and then put them out there and allow them to own situations, allow them not to just phone in to a superior officer, but to make decisions there in the community. And they will make even better decisions by knowing the lay of the land, knowing the neighbors, and that's what the NCO program is all about to me. So I want to thank the mayor, thank the chief, thank everybody who, men and women who put on this blue uniform that keeps Staten Island and New York City safe.
Thank you very much, Borough President. And let me tell you, that last piece is so important. Something that both Commissioner Bratton and Commissioner O'Neill believed in deeply was reorienting the police force towards that ownership model the Borough President talked about, giving our officers more opportunity to use their own discretion, treating them like the professionals they are, giving them the best training, constant opportunity for more training, just as we see with so many other professionals. You talk about lawyers and doctors and airline pilots. They're being trained and retrained all the time. Now our officers are getting that same opportunity, that same respect. The best technology, the best strategic approaches, like the NCO initiative. And it really makes a difference when people have devoted their lives to public safety, get to use all of their skills and all of their judgment in this manner. It's a big step forward. Now I'd like to hear from the gentleman who has the honor of representing this part of Staten Island in the City Council, Councilmember Joe Borelli.
Thank you, thank you. You're going to have to show me.
I'm going to do that. Yeah, this is high tech here. There you go.
This is not a booby trap?
No, it's all good.
Thank you, thank you.
Peace and love today. Peace and love.
Oh, always. Of course, we're joking around, but I think we should confront the fact that sometimes I can be a critic of the administration, and that's why it's all the more important that I'm out here today supporting the NCO program for the 123. This is a program that I have been somewhat asking for and hoping would come to this precinct, and I can't find any holes in it. I mean, case closed. This is a program that works. This is a program that worked in the 7-1. This is a program that rightfully started in some of the more challenging precincts in the city, and this is one that will certainly work in one of the safest precincts in this city. So I thank you. I thank you for choosing this location to expand it. Welcome to Staten Island, guys. I should do a show of hands. How many people are here for the first time? I would say there hasn't been that many cameras here since I don't know when, but this is actually the set of the show Americans. So pretty much this whole block is in the film Americans, and that's one of the things that the city has been very successful in doing. This precinct also is sort of the model for community precinct. If you go to some of the elementary schools, they all know Officer Hadley by name. More importantly, she knows so many of the children by name. If you go to Pleasant Plains, you'll see Officer Payne. Every business owner knows Officer Chris by name. The community board folks, they know Captain Noonan as Kenny, and they know Officer Cansemi as Brian. And if you go to Annandale Town, Jillian Jorgensen's mom even gets to yell at me by name whenever she sees me. True story. So this is a community, as the borough president said, that wants to know and wants to work with their law officers. Every time I've ever had a problem, I've lived in this precinct for 34 years, almost 35 of my life. And of course, things happen over time, and every time I've had to call this precinct, they've always been outstanding, and they've always kept my family safe. They've always kept me safe. Even when I got a few angry letters in the mail, they've been absolutely wonderful. So, Mayor, Chief Monahan, thank you so much, again, for choosing the 123 to host this event. And look, come for the pizza, but stay for the tacos. Taqueria Oaxaca, my favorite taco place right there on the corner. Thank you very much. So they're really delicious.
You know, now I know the slogan of this council district: come for the pizza, stay for the tacos. Okay, include that in your coverage, please. That's crucial. We're going to take questions about the NCO program and anything else police related, and then we'll go to other topics. Anna.
Why would you guys roll this out on the 123 before the 121, given that the 123 has the lowest crime and 121 has like the second highest crime in the borough?
We anticipate your question.
A lot of what we're doing is very strategic. We have to take a look at the personnel that are in a command currently. When we looked at the 123, we were able to reallocate resources that are currently assigned to the command to be able to get this running properly, where we can get our cops time off the radio. 121, we're going to have to look to get some more personnel there before we be able to run it.
Is that going to, do you think this year maybe we'll get it?
We've only mapped it out through July. With each class that comes out, we're moving the personnel into the command so we can get this rolling. So we're reevaluating every 3 months where we're going to go next.
And I think that's a key point, that this depends on being creative about the personnel we have and tailor-making what we're doing to each precinct. It's also been a very deliberative expansion. Our goal is to keep going, and we think the other thing that really needs to be understood is this is a broader initiative. Neighborhood policing has many components. NCO is one of them. But the overall training that our officers are receiving is in a neighborhood policing model, and a lot of the other ways we're orienting precincts, even that do not yet have NCO officers, aligns to neighborhood policing. And you want to add to that point just to help people understand that?
Again, like I said this earlier, it's a philosophical change in the way we police. Discretion, allowing our cops to have ownership for an area, make decisions, use their own initiative, come up with ideas. You know, I've been doing this business for 36 years. I may be out of ideas, but a lot of the young cops out there, they've got great ideas working together with people, and that's kind of what we're pushing forward. Come out with the new ideas, come out with ways to look at your community and feel the pride when actually your neighborhood that you're working is continuing going down in crime.
Amen. Okay, other questions? Yes.
I didn't hear any precincts mentioned in the Bronx. Is there a reason for that?
Sure.
Of course, we're almost done with the Bronx. The only ones in the Bronx that don't have the neighborhood policing right now is the 4-5, the 4-9, and the 5-0. Every other command is up and running. We went through the Bronx. They were one of the first boroughs that we started in.
What's the status of the system to get feedback from the neighbors? When will that be rolled out? And how will you make sure that it accurately reflects the communities that you are policing?
Again, it's a new system, a sentiment meter that we've been working on. We're rolling it out currently to all our commanders. We're going out to each and every command that's in the city, because we have it done for not just neighborhood policing command, but everything. Teaching them how to utilize it, and it's a score meeting about trust and safety. How safe do you feel in your neighborhood? It's done off of apps, off of phones, where they can document where it's coming from, what neighborhoods are, the phones are. It's a whole system trying to figure it out. So I can go by sector, citywide, and see exactly what the level of trust is and how safe people feel, and then we can move resources or go up there and do things differently within the sectors that don't have the same amount of trust.
And that allows us to keep making sure this initiative is working. We want that feedback. We are convinced it's the right model, but we still have to see it work precinct by precinct, sector by sector, and we got to make sure everyone who's a part of it is getting the most out of it. So that kind of feedback helps us immensely. So far, we've been really pleased with what we see, but we got to always keep our ears open to make sure it is working. Jillian, I know you're having dinner with your mom this week. I just want to commend you for remembering your mother while you're here on Staten Island. Okay. Tell her I'm supporting her.
I have a separate policing question. Some of the police unions, the non-PBA police unions, so the SBA and the others, have been airing some grievances over the body camera program. They've talked about potentially filing a lawsuit, and they've also sent a letter to City Hall outlining some issues that they have, including the money that the PBA got for their members to wear cameras, and they want their contracts amended to reflect that. Can you comment at all about the back and forth that's going on here?
I'll start, and if the chief wants to add. Look, it's really straightforward. Right now, there's only one group of members of the NYPD who will be wearing body cameras. That's our patrol officers who are members of the PBA. And the members of the other unions simply are not, at this moment, planned to be using body cameras. So that answers that piece. I think the body camera concept is now sweeping the nation. You know, when we looked at design, and you saw the announcement a few days ago about how we're going to approach it, that was based on researching dozens and dozens of police forces around the country already using them. So this is the shape of things to come. If anybody wants to challenge us, we can win that challenge, I'm confident. But in terms of the question of representing those who will be wearing the cameras, only patrol officers are part of that plan right now. You want to add to that?
Yeah, again, this is something they're just trying to play before going to collective bargaining. It's a collective bargaining issue, but as the mayor said, it's only the cops that are going to be wearing the cameras. They're the ones that are going to be turning it on and off. So we don't foresee any issue with this. Ready to roll it out in another couple of weeks.
Are you hopeful that it'll stay out of court at this point?
I always prefer things to stay out of court, but I don't fear it. We have a great plan here. It's going to make the city safer, I'm convinced, because it's going to help improve the bond between police and community. The sense of transparency, the sense of accountability will increase. And I think we found a lot of parts of the country. This is something that Commissioner Bratton used to talk about. At first, some officers were hesitant, and then when they experienced it, they realized it actually was very good for them on every level, including validating what they had done in different encounters. So this will ultimately happen, and if anyone wants to challenge it, we'll deal with it. Yes.
Picking up on the question about body cameras, the Inspector General had recommended certain guidelines about how to use the body cameras, access them, turn them on, turn them off, and releasing footage on certain instances. The NYPD, in their guidelines, didn't accept a number of those recommendations. So first question is, as a person who fought to get the Inspector General, how do you sort of adjudicate those policy differences? And then secondly, can you just explain, God forbid something bad happens and there's an officer involved in a fatal encounter, what is going to happen to the video from that body camera?
I can't give you the chapter and verse. The chief could maybe give you some of it. I mean, obviously, I had extensive discussions with the leadership of the NYPD and with our legal folks about how we would put together that policy, and I approved it before it was announced. But I want to be careful not to try and recount exact scenarios that I'm not familiar enough with. But look, in terms of the police IG, I mean, the whole notion of the office is to be another set of eyes, and of course, by nature, to be critical and offer different ideas. That doesn't mean we always accept those ideas, as we would be true of any other oversight entity. But I think to have, it's a brand new area, obviously, for this city. It's good to have extra eyes on it. It's something that's going to evolve. I think the other thing we recognize, has been true in other cities as well, is you start with a set of policies and you put them into action, and you may have to amend some of them over time. I have not, to be fair, seen the exact recommendations from the IG, but there's nothing about the notion that they weren't all accepted, immediately that seems to me inconsistent with the role.
Sorry, yeah. If there's an incident where an officer encounters...
I said I just can't give you the chapter and verse if you want to speak to that.
All right, in every incident that we have an officer involved shooting, the tapes will be immediately taken by our Force Investigation Division. They'll be held. And then the decision on whether or not it's going to be released will be on a case-by-case basis up to the police commissioner in consultation with the district attorney's office. So it'll all be case-by-case.
Why is it hard to say shooting, incident, fatality, this is what is going to happen? I mean, some people may be incentivized to say, well, if it's on a case-by-case basis, then we have to protest and yell in the streets and do things like that.
Every incident involves a prosecution, one way or the other. It's important that we don't disrupt a possible prosecution, statements coming out before everyone has been interviewed by having those tapes. So we really can't just come forward and say every incident. It has to be taken a look at it its entirety and have a real consultation with whatever district attorney is going to be prosecuting a case.
Okay, yeah.
The district attorney here wants ShotSpotter to be expanded to more of the North Shore than just the 120. I was wondering where you stand on potentially expanding it, and when is ShotSpotter supposed to be start on the North Shore?
I'll let Chief Monahan or Chief Delatorre speak to specific timing, but on the broader point, look, I've been a fan of ShotSpotter for a long time. Even back as long ago as innocent time as when I was writing my platform and running for office, I thought it was going to be an important step forward, and I think it's proven itself. So we want to keep expanding it as much as makes sense. I certainly love what I've seen so far, but you want to speak to exact timelines?
Yeah, the ShotSpotter process for installation is ongoing now. It's not Mariners Harbor, which is the other part of the North Shore I believe we're talking about. We all agree that that'd be a great place to continue it, but I think it's a cost factor at this point. So as we go across the island and take care of the 120 part of the North Shore, we're all hoping that at some point we do get to the rest of the North Shore, which would be that piece of Mariners Harbor you're talking about. Thanks.
Shootings that usually happen near those houses there?
Well, we have a history of shootings. We're not having a lot of shootings there now, but we do have a history of shootings there as well. Yes.
Willie.
Another policing-related question. During your week here in Staten Island, do you plan on visiting the spot where Eric Garner had his encounter with the police?
I don't have a specific plan for that, no.
Why not go there and address some of the lingering concerns that were raised by Eric Garner?
You know, I've obviously spoken to that tragedy now over years, and I think I've said what we could say for now. We're waiting to see, obviously, what the Justice Department is going to do, and that's the next step in this process. Anything else on police matters? And then we'll go to, yes, please, on police matters. Go ahead.
Talk a little bit about the increased patrols this week in light of the church bombings in Egypt.
Yeah, I will just start and then pass to Chief Monahan. Look, this was a horrible, horrible situation in Egypt, and the footage, if you've seen it, is very, very disturbing. We now, again, have come to a point where the NYPD moves almost instantaneously. It's so fast, unfortunately. They've gotten so, NYPD has become so expert at dealing with these situations because there have been so many of them around the world. So, an immediate action that's taken is to reinforce the community that's under attack. So if it happens to be, for example, an attack that happened in Sweden, you reinforce the Swedish government locations in New York City. If it's an attack on a Coptic church, you reinforce the Coptic churches in the city and get that presence out front immediately. And just to make sure there's no danger of a copycat attack or some larger plot underway. But we also often reinforce other key public sites as a matter of caution. Chief, you want to speak to it?
Obviously, with Passover this week, we've already had plans set up where we were going to be visiting synagogues and everything starting there. So we have house of worship cars in all our commands, making visits starting now. Good Friday, obviously, we're going to be out in all the processions. We're going to have our CRC, our SRG personnel, assigned to various different commands, churches throughout that. And obviously, again, on Easter Sunday, we'll be out in full force covering all the masses. So we're going to have all our resources out there. Well, we're stepping it up, obviously, in light of the incident that just happened.
Anything else on police? Going once, twice. Go on police. Go ahead.
For Inspector Delatorre, there's been a couple of articles. Chief, sorry, I apologize. There's been a couple of articles in WNYC about some of your financial relationships and dealings. I'm wondering if you wanted to address any of those.
But I will speak to something, which is I want to say, whenever an issue comes up, it's naturally going to be looked at. We have a very clear process for that. But I've been working now for 3 years with Chief Delatorre. I found him to be an outstanding police leader. And I've heard so much from people all over Staten Island about how much they appreciate and respect him. So I just want to thank him for the great work he's been doing. Let me say two things up front as we go to other topics, and one of them is very personal. I think a lot of you have seen this morning that our colleague Karen Hinton had a horrible accident and is now in a medically induced coma. I communicated with her husband, Howard Glazer, earlier and offered him the thoughts and prayers of everyone at City Hall and offered any assistance we could. We don't have a further medical update at this moment, but it's weighing on all of us because, to see one of our own in such a situation is just painful, and we're going to do everything we can to support her family and praying for a full recovery. One other thing I want to say up front, when we come to a borough, and this is again something we're starting with in Staten Island, we will be going and turn to, not know the exact sequence yet, but Queens, Brooklyn, and the Bronx. We'll be doing that in the future. If the people retain me, we will be doing that every year going forward. Well, it gives us a chance to focus on the concerns and needs of each borough. It gives us a chance to talk about the things we're doing, but also hear from people, of course, about what more we have to do. But I do want to say, in terms of Staten Island, there's some information I want to share with you that I think is very promising and really speaks to the extraordinary work of the men and women of the NYPD who serve us on Staten Island. First of all, these are all going to be year-to-date examples, but for homicides overall in this borough, year-to-date, there have been 4 to date in 2017. The same period in 2016, there have been 13. So that's a 69% decrease in homicide. Extraordinary number, and congratulations to Chief Delatorre and all the men and women under his command. In traffic fatalities, There has been 1 so far this year in 2017. There were 4 in the same time frame in 2016. So again, great progress. Comes to opioid deaths, an area we're all focused on, and the borough president's been leading the way on this issue. 17, and that's obviously 17 too many, but 17 so far in 2017 compared to 30 in the same time frame in 2016. And those extraordinary efforts to use naloxone, Narcan to reverse overdoses, that's been a key part of it. And then one thing that's less about NYPD, but is about other efforts that are certainly about public safety, and a statistic that has been worrisome for a long time, how many times vehicles are colliding with deer on Staten Island. Well, so far this year, and I think our efforts are having an impact, so far 7 collisions compared to in the same time frame last year, 63. So maybe the deer are not happy about our particular strategic approach. I think our video on Saturday last at Inner Circle spoke volumes on this, but that's an example where some of these policies are really working for Staten Island. We're very, very proud of them. Let me take questions on other topics. Yes, Bridget.
Mr. Mayor, what prompted the timing for City Hall in your borough this week? Why now?
It was an idea that I had seen work in the past as a way to connect better to the grassroots, and I'd thought about it off and on, and just in the rush of events, we never really focused on it. And I said to folks, you know, we got a lot of our major policy initiatives underway, and it was a good time to start going out. And it's a model I think will prove to be one that should be repeated in the future, again, if the people retain me. So an idea that was around that we finally got to focus on.
One of the challengers who's running against you, Paul Massey, has a press conference scheduled for today. He's called this a cheap political stunt. What do you say to folks who say, you know, why time something like this for a re-election year? Why not done it 3 years ago?
I think it would have been great to do it 3 years ago, but again, in the combination of the idea just didn't come to the fore, and we had a lot of other things we were focused on. But we're doing it now, and I think what it's allowing us to do is to go out and hear from people all over Staten Island about their concerns and needs, tell them the things we're doing, connect more deeply to the grassroots, work with the local elected officials. So it's just a good idea. And sometimes, you know, good ideas happen when they happen. I think it's something that's going to help us focus energy and resources in Staten Island. The entire government is on Staten Island today and will be throughout the week. And I think the borough president would agree this is what he'd like to see 365 days of the year. And having it for a whole week is certainly going to focus a lot of time and energy on the needs of Staten Island. Yeah.
There's been some discussion and a little contention over where you're going to put the new pool and or aquatic center that you promised during the town hall last year.
Yep.
I'm just wondering where you're standing on this issue now and whether you think there might need to be more public discussion about where that resource will be placed.
Well, I have not come to a final decision. I've had a lot of conversations with the borough president and his team, and obviously our folks from Parks Department. We're all still looking at the options, and we welcome public input. I would also say one of the things that the borough president has promoted is the idea of multiple recreation facilities, and we're looking at how all those pieces may fit together. So as soon as we have a decision, we'll talk about it, and we welcome for sure ideas from the people of Staten Island and where it would be best. Jillian.
Mayor, going back to what brought you to Staten Island this week, I know that Mayor Dinkins had done something similar when he was mayor. Is that where you got the idea, and were you with him? When
I was indeed.
His relationship with the borough president at the time perhaps was not as friendly.
Yeah.
I was there as well.
Yes. See? We were young and we were free.
Yes.
I was working for Mayor Dinkins at the time. I thought it was a great idea. Kind of never left my mind in the years after. From my vantage point, it was a positive. Remember, it was all the different boroughs. And I honestly, from the remove of so many years, can't remember the details of what happened in each borough, but I still thought it was a good idea. And there is something powerful. I mean, I walked into Borough Hall this morning and looked around, and you know, everyone of every prominent position in the city government was sitting there, and I thought, you know, this is the whole point. It just breaks people out of the norm, helps them to think about what a 5-borough government needs to be. You always, if you spend time around this guy, and I think I could say the same about Councilman Borelli, you're going to get not only ideas, you're going to get exhorted to do more for their borough and their district, and that's good. You want that. And so, and a lot of, I have to say, the borough president's hit rate in terms of offering ideas that we found to be very worthy, that might not have occurred otherwise, it's pretty impressive. So I think getting out in proximity to the neighborhoods and to the people who serve them has a real powerful impact.
Mayor, there was a report last week that the Mayor Bureau got special treatment from the Department of Education that goes beyond what us parents get, including a private tour organized by Carmen Farina.
I'd say two things. The first is, that matter is being looked at, and when we have a bigger sense of things or a clearer sense of things, we'll certainly share it. But I also want to frame the situation, because I spent a lot of time recruiting Richard Bury to take this job, and it was a job that was crucial to the work we were going to do, particularly starting with the pre-K and after-school initiative. And you will remember that this was a big, challenging initiative to achieve. And given what he had achieved at the Children's Aid Society, I felt he brought particular capacity to the task. But it meant asking him to leave his home in another county, uproot his family in the middle of a school year, all sorts of things that were challenging. And obviously take a big pay cut in the bargain. So I'm very, very sensitive to all concerns about schools and school admissions, because I went through it. With Chiara and Dante, I went through middle school admissions. I went through high school admissions. I understand how much it means to parents. And so I'm very, very clear about those processes have to be handled the right way. But I think we also have to put into context, I was asking this guy to uproot his family, take a pay cut, and get involved in public service. And I think it's important to recognize that we have to be sensitive to that situation too. Yes.
How are you feeling about mayoral control, given that it wasn't in the budget, and given that upstate Republicans who are hostile to that notion appear to be ascendant in the state Senate GOP?
I would say on the whole mayoral control discussion, I never had the illusion that it would be easy to get it done in the budget. I would have liked to get it done in the budget, but I understood the way it's played out the previous years was the most likely outcome again. And it's true there are some who are critics, but I would also say there's a lot of people in the Senate who, are clear, at least privately, that they're not promoting an alternative. It's not like they say they want to go back to the old school boards, which, as I remind people, was a system plagued with chaos and corruption. I don't hear anyone saying that, and I don't hear anyone proposing a third way. So, in the end, I think if we're going to play it out again over months, we'll play it out over months. But I think the same voices will come to the fore as have in the past. We had a real strong bipartisan coalition here in the city, including a lot of business leaders who were very forceful in telling the state Senate how important mayoral control was. And then on top of that, we have another year under our belt where the graduation rate continued to go up, the test scores continue to go up, the dropout rate continued to go down. I don't know what some people need to be impressed, but we continue to show them the system works.
More or less hopeful that mayoral control will be renewed, given that there are Democrats in the city who are working with the Senate Republicans?
When you say that, I don't understand that, Les.
IDC, are you more or less? I
don't think the IDC dynamic affects the mayoral control trajectory in any profound way. Again, I think we've, at a certain point, if you see something happen 3 years in a row, it's not surprising if it's going to happen a fourth year in a row. I don't think it's right. I think it should be extended for a longer period of time, given all the success that's been achieved. But I think the bottom line is there is no alternative structure that would work. This is the only thing that does work. We're proving it every day. And in the end, the most likely outcome is the same old result.
A question for you and then a question for Mr. Otto. Could you please talk about 421A as it was in the budget, and what other things in the budget are you concerned about relative to the impact of the decision?
The 421A outcome, although it wasn't the exact model we offered a few years ago, it was much closer to that model than what 421A used to be. The old 421A was a giveaway to real estate developers, funded luxury condos, wasn't fair to taxpayers, didn't create enough affordable housing. This plan that emerged was based on the model we proposed a few years ago, added a few additional elements, which, although they put some additional burdens on city taxpayers, certainly didn't take us back to what we used to experience. So on balance, it's certainly an outcome we can live with. In terms of the rest of the budget, look, simple pros and cons, very good news in terms of additional school aid and in terms of the passage of Raise the Age. We're still concerned about how that's going to be funded going forward, but there's time to work on that. Again, not shocked on mayoral control. I think it could have and should have been dealt with here in the budget, but I'm not shocked at the outcome. Mansion tax didn't make it at this point, but that discussion is far from over. There's a lot of people in this state who are looking at both the mansion tax and the expansion of the millionaire's tax as an ongoing discussion as we await what's going to happen in terms of the federal budget, starting with the continuing resolution that we're going to know a lot more on in the coming days in Washington. So that fight's going to continue. I think we had some areas where things worked out, some other areas less so, but we're going to continue to fight through the legislative session on some of these items. Yeah.
Mr. Otto, you don't have concerns about the extension of the tax abatement under 421A from 25 years to 35 years, and the IBO has estimated that the costs from that will be quite high.
Again, this is not the plan that we originally proposed, which I still think was superior. But I understand that in Albany, a lot of things happen. There were changes made to the plan that weren't the changes I would have thought of, but they still left us with a plan we could live with. And we were able to push back some of the ideas that I think would have taken us back towards the old 421 way. There were some who wanted to create much deeper subsidies for luxury buildings and a much greater cost to the taxpayer. Those efforts were rejected. So it's not our plan, but it's a plan we can live with.
During the cannoli exchange, you said
cannoli exchange, as it is now come to be known.
You said that the mayor's poll numbers in Staten Island aren't great. Tell me why you brought that up. And
well, first I would like to say I appreciate the appearance of Mike Pence at today's presser. Joe, you really do have stroke with the administration. I brought it up in the context of trying to underscore our approach at Borough Hall. I've been in this business a long time, and there are some elected officials who'll take the easy shot. It's easy to criticize. It's harder to build bridges. Go to any zoo, you can find a chimpanzee who grabs its own feces and throws it at the passersby. Doesn't take a whole lot of talent. What's hard is to have a borough that is center-right, to have a mayor that's progressive, and to work and find common ground. So I referenced the mayor's poll numbers to tell his administration, his commissioners, I haven't done what others have. I've tried hard to focus on the mission, and the mission is to improve the lives of Staten Islanders. That was the context I brought it up.
Is that relative to the reception he's going to get here? Are you letting him?
No, it was relative to me trying to take advantage of a moment to remind the commissioners of the personal relationship I have with the mayor. The mayor has heard me voice frustration with sort of the permanent government. Well, I will run into a brick wall, not with the mayor, not with the mayor's team, but I will run into a brick wall, or my staff will run into a brick wall with a particular agency. Every time the mayor talks to his team about the relationship we have, I think it inures to the benefit of the people of Staten Island. So I wanted to be candid with the team, to put it in a context that we do have a good working relationship, and I'm all about business. I'm not about the politics.
Amen. Amen. Let me just add, maybe there's something a little traditional happening here, too. I was struck. I had a meeting with one of my fellow mayors last year, mayor of Tulsa, Oklahoma. His father had been a Republican member of the U.S. Senate, and he talked about the stories his father would tell of Democrats and Republicans in the Senate. This would have been the 50s and 60s. You know, having dinner together, having lunch together, disagreeing on some core issues, but having a very open channel, and when they could find some common ground, looking for it. Look, I think it's well known. If we listed positions on a bunch of issues that the borough president and I had had disagreements. But the fact that we can talk, we can break bread, we can compare notes, that when he says, I got a bureaucratic problem, I take him on his word because neither one of us likes bureaucracy and likes to break through. I think that's what people should want. You know, maybe it doesn't happen a lot in Washington, but, you know, I don't feel I would say the same for Councilman Borelli. If he calls up and says there's a problem, you know, I'm going to take it as something I need to focus on. I don't care what party he is. And to his credit, if he thinks we've done something right, as you said originally when we moved the repaving initiative, you know, it's an important thing when someone can say, you know, I disagree with you on a lot of things, but that was the right thing to do. That builds that kind of trust and relationship. I think they're serving their constituents by building that kind of relationship. But I also think, honestly, you know, this is something we should celebrate a little bit. And if we had it in Washington, we might have a different country right now. Yes.
What would you say to conservatives on Staten Island who have not been supportive maybe of your term over the last few years? And are you here to try to win them over before the election?
No, I'm not here to try and win over folks who philosophically disagree. I really respect folks who have an ideology and see the world through it. I don't think anyone should be rigid. Like I said, it should never be impossible to work with other people, even if they have different views. But there are folks who just look at what I believe in and disagree with it. They shouldn't vote for me. I think that's fair. They want to see a different vision. That's fine. You know, I don't feel bad about that. I think it's normal. Simple point. It's the most Republican borough. Well, people who are Republicans might not agree with me as a Democrat. You know, this just in, newsflash. You know, it doesn't bother me one bit. But I think what would be bothersome is if I started ignoring this borough because of political differences. I think I owe it to the people here. They're just as much my constituents as anyone else. It's 500,000 people. I have been here. This is my 60th visit since I became mayor. I'm proud of that. And I think, you know, you should show up in the places where people agree with you, and you should show up in the places where they don't agree with you. Yes, Anna.
There's actually more Democrats on Staten Island registered than Republicans. What do you make of that, since the Democrats here didn't vote for you either?
Well, again, that is not inconsistent with the fact it's the most Republican borough, and it's obviously the only borough that has a Republican congressman, for example. But yeah, there's a lot of Democrats who also have a philosophy that might be a different version than what I have, and that's fine. You know, there's Democrats who are more conservative. There's Democrats who are more progressive. We've known that for decades about the Democratic Party. It's a big tent party. But people are going to make decisions according to their values. What I want to do is show people, that's not what this week is about, but in terms of a separate question, which is the re-election campaign, my job is to show people what we've done and let them judge for themselves. I think a lot of people in the city, when they see safer streets, when they see better relationship between police and community, you know, higher graduation rate, more jobs, more affordable housing, I think they'll want more of that. But I also respect that some people are going to be motivated by philosophical differences, and I think that's normal. That doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
You were here with Mayor Dinkins all those years ago.
Yeah.
From what you're hearing today so far, how have the needs and concerns of Staten Island changed, and what stands out to you that's different from the way it was then?
It's a big question. I could say at the outset, I mean, I think, you know, this relationship that we're talking about is one example. I don't know if it's of how Staten Island has changed, but certainly how the assumptions and leaders have changed. You know, maybe it's because I'm a Brooklynite, and there's a special relationship. It's like the United States and England. There's a special relationship between Brooklyn and Staten Island. Yeah, I have, over many, many years, had a lot of connections to Staten Island. And I would not feel good if I wasn't focused on this borough along with everyone else. And I think in the past there was more sense of separation. I think, you know, slowly but surely, people have found more common ground. doesn't have to be perfect, but I think that is one thing that's happened over the last 25 years or more. And look, I mean, back when Staten Island had some particular grievances, obviously, Fresh Kills being one of the most powerful examples where people really did feel like they were being treated different than everybody else. I think over years, a lot has changed to reduce that sense of separation. It doesn't mean people are going to say everything's perfect. I just think it's a better situation than it used to be. See if there's anything else, Ozzy.
You referenced that you'd like to see more cooperation in Washington between people that might not
who have close relationships with senators and Congress members. Consistently, they say, if you talk these folks off record, they actually would like to find more common ground. They actually agree, and for example, in the discussion over health care and some other issues, or immigration. But for a lot of the Republican members of the House and Senate, the Tea Party dynamics, the Freedom Caucus dynamics have really been hard for them. And so they have, a public stance, whereas their private views might be more moderate, if you will, and more focused on working together. Whatever your ideological view, I think in the context of a legislature, we got to help people find their way toward each other so we can get things done. And again, the council in New York City is very different. But I got to tell you, I mean, I found, particularly with Jimmy, but with other members as well, it's like we knew we had to get stuff done, and we kind of had those times when we put aside party affiliation. We got to get that happening again in the Congress. Trump's a different matter, and I have absolute respect for, everyone here may have a different view. And I know the councilman was an early supporter. But my view is I want to see something from the Trump administration that's very different from what I've seen to even begin to think about how to work with them, because I've been sorely disappointed. I thought there might be an atmosphere of cooperation. I haven't seen it. That's my view. The Congress, though, that's almost an eternal question. That has to be changed no matter who's president.
Just lastly, your relationship with the borough president here seems to be in stark contrast with your relationship with the governor, who you've also known for many years. You probably agree on more policy issues, at least on paper.
We're all Italian. Keep going. A lot of vowels in our names.
Why is it that you think you're able to foster this kind of relationship with the borough president, and yet your relationship with the governor seems to maybe not be going in that same direction?
That was an understatement there. Look, I'm not going to psychoanalyze it. I think everything's based on personal experience. My experience with Jimmy Otto has been one of absolute and total consistency. What you see is what you get. Man of his word. And I just like him as a human being. He also is exceptionally good at predicting Major League Baseball prospects. And so if you're a true baseball fan, as I am, you just want to spend time with him to know what the future holds.
Ask Emma Wolf about Manuel Margot.
Yeah. Okay. That's going to be like the secret question a week. Ask Emma Wolf about Manuel Margot. First one to
Red Sox prospect.
First one to figure it out wins. But so I just think it's a totally different situation, Ozzy. That's been this experience. The other experience, obviously, has been very different.
You were on Staten Island to go to a Jewish community center to talk about anti-Semitic threats and crimes. Tonight is Passover, but on your schedule you have a TV appearance and road repaving. Why not include a Seder in your schedule?
Oh, we're not doing a Seder, but I will be doing an appearance in the Jewish community to respect and celebrate the holiday. It doesn't happen to be a Seder. I don't think it's tonight, but just not a Seder. Yes?
My colleague Marcia Kramer has been doing a series of reports on disgusting, molded school cafeteria food. Follow-up to her reports, have parents been notified, number one, and number two, what have you all been doing to ensure that this doesn't happen again and the food is safe for the children to eat?
First of all, I share the outrage that our kids should never have to eat food that isn't healthy and isn't right. And I said to everyone on my team after I heard that report, it's our obligation to tell parents whenever something like that happens. And, we are often in the business of having to tell people truths, whether they're pleasant or not, but it's our job to tell parents, and I'm saying this as a parent and as a former public school parent myself. You want to know as soon as something is happening. So we've got to do better at that. And my instruction to the Department of Education is I want immediate notification. Meanwhile, we got to get to the root of the problem, make sure it doesn't happen again. It has been pretty isolated in the scheme of things in a school system of 1.1 million kids, but that doesn't mean I take it lightly. So my understanding is there's been vendors whose contracts have been canceled and, supply chains that have been closed off and one thing or another. But we got to do better. That shouldn't happen. And God forbid it ever does happen in such a big system, parents got to know right away. Okay, let me get a couple. Who has not gotten one? Go ahead.
Mr. Mayor, I don't know how indicative this guy down the street is of the reception you might be getting this week.
I think he's a particular individual. In fact, one of the members of my detail said they knew him from 10 years ago in Midtown doing a similar thing. So I think he's got a long, rich history.
If and when you are confronted by hecklers, does that bother you? What is your sort of attitude towards that kind of thing?
I think when it's a professional heckler, it doesn't bother me. If that's what someone effectively does with their life, God bless them. Their commitment to democracy is striking. No, look, people are going to have different views, and everyone in New York City has an opinion, and everyone in New York City lets it out and doesn't hold it back, right? So I expect it. I also have a wonderful experience of people who appreciate things that are happening and come up and say thank you. You get both, so it's fine. It's part of life. I may do a little more, Eric. I'm sorry, Eric.
On IDNYC, the city won the suit last week to be able to delete the data, but the judge, held it until April 10th for an appeal process. Is there any worry that the federal government might try to get the records before then?
No, at this moment, no. We believe we're governed by city law, and any such action obviously would result in a different legal action. But look, we think the result was very positive, very clear, maximizes the chance that this will be resolved very soon in favor of our position. And, we're ready to defend it come what may. Yeah.
How many people are going to be able to attend your town hall?
The town hall is whatever the gymnasium can hold. That's the way we do them.
Spokeswoman wouldn't tell me how many.
I don't know how many people the gymnasium holds, but we'll make sure to let you know.
Mr. Mayor, you've got a bunch of things that you still will be asking Albany for, mayoral control. Among the things that Governor Cuomo proposed in his State of the State and his budget were a series of electoral reforms. When I asked him about it, he said, that's policy, we'll deal with that after we have the budget. So in terms of your own advocacy, where do these electoral reforms sort of rank in terms of your priorities, and do you think this year they'll actually get anything done?
Look, I think they're huge priorities. They're a major, major priority from my point of view. I think electoral reform will cause a lot of other changes we need in this state. Anyone who thinks our government in this state is not transparent enough, that our campaign finance system in the state is broken, the key to changing that is electoral reform. And I think there's a lot of challenges, a lot of problems with our state government that need to be addressed. Same-day voter registration will help. Early voting will help. Electronic poll books will help. We're going for all of it. And my argument would be that this is a crucial or sort of priceless moment to do it because, so much energy was generated before November 8th, particularly by Bernie Sanders' candidacy on issues of electoral reform. And then the results of November 8th, regardless of what you believe, the results left people roiled and a lot of people, wanting to get much more involved. So I think there's going to be huge pressure in Albany for electoral reform. We're going to make it a major part of what we do.
If you're up there and you're advocating for mayoral control and the mansion tax, does electoral reform fall to the bottom of that list?
I don't sort of think of them as on a grading system. It's a major priority, and we're looking to get done as much as we can get done. And we're looking for every opportunity. These sessions have a life of their own. My job here is to really bang the drum for electoral reform, and I know a lot of other folks are going to as well, and sort of create the momentum that makes this a year we can get it done. One more.
Mr. Mayor, with the perspective of a few days, can you tell us what your thinking is about the missile strike in Syria? Also, the Supreme Court got a new justice today, and I think we got like that too.
Look, in terms of Justice Gorsuch, obviously I don't agree with him on a lot of his beliefs, but now we get to see who he is. If he takes after his mentor, Justice Kennedy, from my perspective, again, I won't speak for my Republican colleagues, but from my perspective, we might be pleasantly surprised if he shows the kind of independence that Justice Kennedy has. But I have no such assumption. I think his decisions to date have been substantially more right-wing than what we've seen from Justice Kennedy. You know, you just don't know till you get there. As you know, famous examples like Justice Warren and Justice Souter point out, you don't know until someone actually serves who they are. So we'll have to see now. In terms of the second part was, I'm sorry, the missile strike. It's time to go to Congress. I mean, I think we're all outraged at the notion of the use of chemical weapons. I think even people who disagree with each other on a lot of other matters could find common ground on the notion that we have to draw a line in the sand on that. But now this matter must go to the Congress. I'm a big believer in the War Powers Act. I grew up, you know, in a family that was very, very aware of what the Vietnam War meant, including having, you know, draft age members of my family. The War Powers Act, as a result of the Vietnam War, made really clear that the Congress has to make any decision about going to war. So if the administration is considering any further action, they have to go to the Congress for authorization at this point. Thanks, everyone.